Hello students, welcome to Notebook. Do you know India has the world's second largest area of arable land or land which is suitable for agriculture? India's agricultural, horticultural and processed food products are exported to more than 100 countries across the world, mainly to Japan, Southeast Asia, the European Union and the United States. At present, India produces 11% of the total global agricultural produce. So, more than half of the Indian population is dependent on agriculture and agricultural activities for their livelihood. What was the case during the 16th and the 17th centuries when the Mughals ruled the country? More than 85% of the Indian population lived in the villages when the Mughals ruled the country. Most of the villagers were farmers or peasants and rich landowners who fought with each other over the share of agricultural produce. They together made up the agrarian rural society. Indo-Persian writings of the Mughal period tells us that a peasant was known as a raya or a muzrain. There were two kinds of peasants,
Khud Khashta
and
Pahi Khashta.
in the 17th century.
The Khud Khashta,
Lived in the village where they held their lands.
the Pahi Khashta,
Were farmers who worked on contractual basis on lands far away from their native village. Farmers became
Pahi Khashta,
in times of financial difficulties or for better opportunities of earning. The condition of the poor peasant was similar in different parts of Indian subcontinent during the Mughal rule. In North India, the average peasant did not own more than a pair of bullocks and two plows. In Bengal, the average peasant never owned more than 5 acres of land. Only a rich peasant or asani held 10 acres of land. Agriculture expanded during the 16th and 17th centuries. This was because land and labor were easily available and peasants kept moving from one place to another in search of fertile land and better opportunities of agriculture. Rice, wheat and millet were the most frequently cultivated crops. Most of these crops needed sufficient supply of water. The rulers or the state supported irrigation projects and ordered the digging of new canals. They also repaired old canals like the Shah Nahr in Punjab during Shah Jahan's rule. Cattle energy was also used in agriculture. Oxen drew the wooden plough to dig trenches in the land. They also pulled the drill which was used to plant seeds. However, the most popularly practiced method was broadcasting or scattering of seeds. Mughal India was a land of abundant crops. Two major seasonal cycles of crop cultivation were the Kharif and the Rabi. Most places grew 2 crops a year and were known as the Do Fasla regions. But some regions, which received greater supply of water, grew as many as 3 crops a year. Crops were grown for subsistence as well as for commercial purposes. These were known as the food crops and the cash crops or jins-e-kamil. Cotton, oilseeds and sugarcane were the best revenue crops or jins-e-kamil. Cotton was grown in large areas of central India and the Deccan Plateau. Bengal was famous for cultivating sugar. The Mughal rulers supported the cultivation of jins-e-kamil because they brought in revenue. Crops were also introduced to the Indian subcontinent from distant lands. For example, maize came from Africa and Spain and was cultivated in large quantities in Western India.
Vegetables,
And fruits like tomatoes, potatoes, chilies, pineapples and papaya came from the New World or the Americas. The village community in Mughal India had 3 constituents: the peasant, the panchayat and the village headman, called the muqaddam or mandal. The village community was unequal. It had caste-based and other kinds of distinctions. A large number of villagers worked as menials, agricultural laborers or majur. They belonged to the lowest caste and were the poorest among the villagers. The condition of these Majurs was similar to the Dalits or untouchables of modern India, who were ill-treated and forced to do dirty menial work, which the upper caste would not do. The Muslim communities during the 17th century had menials like the halal Quran or scavengers who lived outside the village. The Mallazadas in Bihar were compared to slaves. However, there were low castes like the Ahirs, Gujjars, Malis, Sadgobs and Kaivartas who grew in prominence and social status during this time. This was because they earned money from cattle rearing, horticulture and fishing occupation and became richer. Apart from the peasants or cultivators, the artisans formed a significant part of the village community. Sometimes cultivators also participated in craft production. The village artisans were the potters, blacksmiths, carpenters, barbers, and goldsmiths. They provided their services or their crafts to the villagers. The villagers compensated them for their services by giving them a share of the harvest or an allotment of land. In Maharashtra, these lands became the artisans' hereditary holdings, miras or vatans. The other type of compensation or remuneration fixing was known as the judge money system. The Zamindars in Bengal remunerated or paid the artisans a small daily allowance or diet money for their work. Who laid down the rules of the village and solved disputes or conflicts? The Panchayat, headed by the Muqaddam or Mandal, took such decisions. The Panchayat was an assembly of elderly important people of the village who had hereditary rights over their property. It was a heterogeneous or varied mix of people and represented various sections or classes of the village community. However, the menial labours or Majurs were not represented in the village Panchayat. The elders of the village elected the village headman and the Zamindar approved their decision. The village headman could hold on to his position as long as the villagers believed in him. If he failed to do his duties properly, the Panchayat could dismiss him or remove him from his position. The Muqaddam prepared the village accounts assisted by the accountant of the Panchayat. He also made sure that the caste distinctions were maintained by the villagers. All marriages were held in the presence of the Mandal or village headman in eastern India. The Panchayat headed by the Muqaddam also punished lawbreakers by levying fines on them or expelling them from the community. The Panchayat received funding from individual contributors. The funds were used for community welfare activities and for entertaining or hosting the revenue officials who often visited the village. Each caste or jati also had its own jati panchayat. The jati panchayats were powerful and the state respected their decisions. Caste groups or communities of people in the villages submitted petitions to the village panchayat complaining against the injustice they had faced in the hands of the state officials or zamindars and upper caste villagers. The complaints were about unjust demands like unpaid labor and excessive taxation. The villagers often revolted by leaving and deserting a village when the panchayat failed to address their complaints and secure justice for them. The women during the 16th and 17th centuries were as active as men in agricultural and artisanal work. Women were regarded as valuable resources or labours in the rural society of Mughal India. Mortality rates among the women were high, and men needed wives to share their work and give birth to their offsprings. So they often paid bride price to the bride's family for marrying a woman. Widow remarriages were also allowed. All this tells us that women were no longer homebound and they were involved in a variety of activities. But they had little importance or respect in society as they were still treated as commodity. The panchayat punished infidelity on part of women severely. However, male infidelity was often excused. The names of the women petitioners were often not written in the petitions. They were regarded as the mother, wife, or sister of the male head of the household. Women, however, had the right to inherit property. Hindu and Muslim women could inherit, sell, or mortgage zamindaris. The famous Rajshahi Zamindari of the 18th century had a woman at the helm. Thus, we can see that the village society was very important in rural India. The support of the state helped the villagers expand agriculture and their conditions improved. However, most of the records historians have found are official records, chronicles and documents from the Mughal court like the Ain-e-Akbari. The perspective or opinions of the peasants are missing from these documents. All these documents, however, record that there was conflict between the peasants, Zamindars and the state or the rulers. We will find out more about the life of the commoners in the Mughal Empire in our next video. Till then, keep learning.